Okay, here we go. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. We will be talking about training in zone 2 because that's a big question and mystery and frustration. There are so many things that we can say about zone 2 training, right? I just want to clarify some things and also with this information, hopefully motivate you to have the patience to do your zone 2 training. Some of us love zone 2. To some of us, it just feels like a nice, easy, relaxed effort. To others, it might be walking, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you're unfit or or you're out of shape. That doesn't necessarily mean that, but it just takes some patience to do your zone 2 training, and then your athletic ability and performance will change significantly. So I just want to talk. I have a lot of great information that I've collected. And I want to share it all with you. The first resource that I used is a doctor called, his name is Howard J. Lukes, MD. He's an orthopedic surgeon, sports. I don't know him. He's not in the state, but he's one of the country's best orthopedic surgeons. And he is also a great author on topics like this and training and athletic type of topics. So I used some information from one of his articles, and I also used some information from one of my favorite coaches that I've learned from over the past many years. His name is Lance Watson, and he's also a great author and writes some wonderful articles that I've always found helpful. So whenever I search a topic and I find his name, I always like to use it because I feel like his philosophy, I fit into his philosophy. So it works wonderfully. And I want to clarify too, if you go out there and search or search zone 2 training or zone 2 charts or things like that, you might see different numbers. So I tend to use, or I don't tend to, I use 65 to 75% of your lactate threshold or of your functional threshold power on the bike is your zone 2. And your heart rate is close to that as well. Heart rate can vary, so that's just because heart rate varies in everything. So so it's important to know that, and that there are other philosophies in calculating zones or in spreading the zones, I should say. So sometimes you'll see a zone 2 that's a little bit different calculation than that. The power zones should be the same if you see that somewhere else. If you ever see anything different and you have a question, let me know. But there are different, I don't know if I want to say philosophies, but different ways that that people in the past have explained training zones and their purposes. So for tonight, we're talking about the zone 2 that we use, that we have in Training Peaks, that you put in your Garmin, and also your zone 2 on the bike, which power is a little bit different. But what we'll call it is those long aerobic workouts. Your bonus zone 2 runs are supposed to be easy breathing is what I'll say. So if someone doesn't have a heart rate monitor and they don't know what their zone 2 is, then I'll just tell them easy breathing. It's like, it's a conversational pace, but where you could have an easy conversation, not where you're gasping for air in between words. And then you will get some zone 2 benefit in other workouts, such as easy rides. So easy rides sometimes will range from zone 1 to zone 3. It kind of depends on how you feel. But my hope is that you get some time in zone 2 on those. Those can be recovery. Sometimes I'll put in there as you feel. Sometimes I'll say try to stay in zone 1 and 2. And then negative split workouts, I normally start those in zone 2. And sometimes it depends on what you're training for. So as you get deeper into or closer to race season, you might see these zones that I use in these workouts change because I want to add more intensity. So a negative split workout might be start in zone 2. You do warm up in 1 and 2, or maybe just zone 1. Then you do a zone 2 for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And then you do a zone 3 to 4 or 2 to 3 for the rest of it, for the second half of the harder effort. So that's also another opportunity to get some zone 2 time in. Sometimes I'll say get 80% of zone 2 in the specific workout. So if I know that you might have some hills on your runs from home, or you might be going to a park, or your runs vary from time to time. You go and train with the On Pace group or something like that. So you never really know where you're going to go. just attempt to get 80% of that workout in zone 2. So if you hit a hill or you start talking to someone and get excited and your heart rate goes up, don't worry too much about it. Just try to bring it back down to zone 2 when you can. Some interval workouts have zone 2. So even the track workouts, we usually do our warm up and our cool down in zone 2, sometimes zone 1. And we do our recoveries in zone 2. I've been giving some of you pace zone workouts, and a lot of people are really enjoying that. It gives you a little bit more of a number to work with rather than just saying, run the 800s at a strong pace, right? There's a great reason for those workouts too. But the pace zones, then you know, okay, at this pace zone, then I know I'm going to be staying close to zone 2, if not in zone 2 for most of it. So that's important. Let's talk about, so those are the types of workouts that I give you. And, you know, the long ones that say stay in zone 2 on this, must be at least 80% in zone 2. Those are really important. And I hope after I tell you some of these benefits, then you'll understand a little bit more why I stress it so much. So a few things. It increases zone 2 heart rate training, and I'll just say zone 2 training, let's say that. Increases the number of mitochondria. Mitochondria are the cells that have been called the powerhouse cells, so they generate energy in our bodies. It will also increase mitochondrial efficiency, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that means, and metabolic flexibility. Same, those two kind of go hand in hand. It will also help us have a lower resting heart rate. So each time our heart beats, it's plumping. It's pumping more blood. So that's a good thing. Our hearts are more efficient. Our hearts are stronger. You may have a decrease in blood pressure. Likely, if you stick to this, you will likely have a decrease in blood pressure. It's really good for overall health, as you're seeing. It could lower your risk of injury because you're slowly building up your body, all of your muscles and your bones and everything, and all of your connective tissues. You're slowly building them up for harder and more intense workouts, and that are coming in race efforts as well. It improves insulin resistance, which is also great for overall health. Builds your aerobic base and endurance. That's kind of a general statement. We always talk about, or we talk frequently about aerobic base and building endurance for your longer races, and knowing that building endurance is important for any distance race that you're doing. So that this equates to better race performance because increased aerobic capacity enhances your ability to sustain. So I'm having problems talking. Sustain the sub-threshold pace for a longer period of time. So the more you do zone 2 training, the more it can also benefit you with muscular endurance. So just like I said, in different words, it will enhance your ability to hold a faster pace over a longer period of time, which becomes our goal as a lot of people go from racing sprint triathlons to racing Olympic distance triathlons. And if you have a super strong base, then I will work on muscular endurance with you. If you don't have a super strong base, that's okay. I've had athletes that have come to me and they really need to work on base and they have a long race coming up quickly, and I can't jump to give them muscular endurance intervals. You all have been with me for a while, so this is great. You're establishing that base so we can work on muscular endurance, which really means speed in longer distances, and strength, just overall strength as an athlete. Okay, so it's basically a foundation where you'll be able to build the higher levels of fitness, where you'll be able to build your muscular endurance. And that's something else I'd like to talk about next week. And I'll have to do a recording for next week because I'll be out of town. But I want to talk about the importance of the other zones and the training in the other zones and how we use that. And then you'll understand some of the workouts that you see in Training Peaks and the reason why. So any questions so far? Yeah, go ahead, Tashi.
Yeah, so I'm still trying to learn zone 2s, and this is a great topic. Thanks for that. So my question is, when you are in the race, what zone people tend to be in? Is zone 2 It's like zone 5, you should be always like,
Good question. So and I'll say it depends. So let's just say it this way. When you're racing in a sprint triathlon, yes, you're going to be in probably zone 4 and 5 the whole entire time. Now the swim, we like to stay in a lower heart rate zone in the swim. Now, if you're a good swimmer and you know how to push hard and you know, and you're aware of your ability to swim that distance at a certain speed, which you should be by the time you get to race day, then you can work in the higher zones. But ideally the swim is your warm up. So I'll say swim might be zones like 3 to 4, and that depends on efficiency too. Then your bike in a sprint, well, yeah, that'll be zones 4 and 5. Your run in a sprint, that'll be zones 3 to 5. So and it also depends on your ability as an athlete to hold that high heart rate for that period of time. So 3 miles on the run in zone 5 could be impossible, right? So, but 3 miles in zone 3 to 4 or 3 to 5 is possible. And yeah, you'll figure that out as you get closer to race day. So that sprint, Olympic, same idea, just kind of bump it back a zone. So the Olympic, you may go into zone 5, but as you get into the longer distances, even Olympic distance, just think of you have a book of matches. And every time you go into zone 5, you're burning one of those matches. You're using up one of those matches, and you only have so many. So you might have 5 of them, right? You're using them up every time you go in zone 5. So like when you go to pass someone and you work as hard as you possibly can, then you know, okay, I better adjust because I may have to pass more people, or if it's a hilly course, I know I'm going to be using more energy on these hills. So think of those as matches, and that becomes a really important kind of thought to keep in your head when you get into half iron and Ironman. So I'll say Olympic distance, you'll be more in, let's say, same thing, it's 3 to 5. It kind of just depends on your training and your ability and the course. And your race strategy too, because sometimes if you're not as strong of a runner and we need to save something for the run, then we might keep your bike a little bit more efficient and keep that in a little bit lower zone, not that it'll be slow, but a little bit lower training zone, power, heart rate, whatever you're using. And then you'll get off with a little bit more energy for the run. Because as I try to coach you with the thought that you want to save something for the end, you're always going to have a better result if you negative split everything, right? Like, and also same planning for race day. If you can get off of that bike and have a good run, you've had a successful race. You've done a lot right. Now I've had clients do that and say, maybe I went too slow on the bike. You know, it's like you can't, but that's what you learn from experience too, if you can save enough for the run. So Olympic will be, I like to say it depends, because I don't want you to take this for, you know, it depends on a lot. I don't want you to take this and write it down and say, this is what I'm going to do, you know. But then, so Olympic, zones 3 to 5, and then half iron, zone 3 to 4. And yeah, if it's hilly, you might have the matchbook again, because you might go into zone 5 and you probably want to stay more in 3 and low 4. And again, it depends on your training. So I've had people come to me that don't have a fitness base. I build up their base as much as I can up to race day. And their goal is to stay in zone 2 for most of their race, because their fitness isn't such that they can hold those higher heart rates for that long. And that's okay. You know, their goal is just to finish within the allotted time. So that's a little bit different scenario. And then Ironman, zone 2, as much as possible. When you get out of zone 2, you're burning a match. You might have a little bit bigger match book if you've done your training properly, right? So for iron and half iron training, I like to mix up the training as some hilly, some flat. It depends. I mean, I didn't mean to say it depends in that case. Some flat, some hilly, because you reap many different benefits in both of those different kinds of training. but both of those different kinds of training will make you a stronger athlete. So, so I'll talk a little bit more about zone two, and Shashi, I'll make sure too that I'll emphasize that, or talk a little bit more about that next week when I talk about the zones, the other zones. We'll say the other zones besides zone two. And zone one is recovery. Zone one is really strictly just to get your circulation going and speed recovery. So you're either going to do zone one or you're going to rest. And in that case, it depends. Some athletes like active recovery and that helps you feel better. Others like total rest, and that's okay too. So
yeah, this
so
helps. So just to follow up on that, maybe I'm not able to read TrainingPeaks information little right, but are you giving me any trainings with the zones in it, or how do I interpret that now? Or I'm not there yet, or what? How should I do that? Maybe it's.
Yep. So the intervals that I give you, and here's what I can do too. So the intervals that I give you are basically zone training. So I can explain in the interval workouts what they mean, what the purpose of them are. Maybe that will help.
Okay.
Okay. Because yes, you do. And it's different with each athlete. So I have a couple of athletes that don't have a smart trainer and don't necessarily have heart rate zones that they can use yet. So that type of person, it might use perceived exertion on a stationary bike, that's fine. And that's a great place to start. Hi, Dave. So yeah, but good questions, and let me and I'll explain too in next week's when I go into the other zones and interval training, we'll say the purposes of the different types of workouts. So then you'll see. Let me just write myself a note. Okay. So so let's talk about a continuation of the zone 2 training and the increase in the number of mitochondria and mitochondrial efficiency. That was part of the list of the benefits of zone 2. So and your metabolic flexibility. So metabolic flexibility is the ability of your mitochondria to utilize fat and glucose as energy. And we talk about being a fat burner or a sugar burner. So the sugar burner is the person whose body, and sugar burner can come from someone who hasn't been training much or who tends to train in higher heart rate zones and not in that zone 2. Zone 2 is going to teach your body to burn fat. So if you're a sugar burner, your body just more quickly reaches for those quick carbohydrate stores. And we have a couple thousand calories in our quick carbohydrate stores. It's not many. And we have tens of thousands of calories in our fat calorie stores. So if you're a sugar burner, you're more limited on the amount of fat burning you can do. And when it does come time for your body to burn fat because you're out of your glycogen stores, it's a tough transition. It doesn't feel good. So you've heard of bonking or hitting the wall. That's that transition that's so horrible or uncomfortable. So we want to avoid that, and we can if we train our bodies properly. So so that's to me as a coach and knowing your goals, the fact that training in zone 2 can help you burn fat as fuel is very important. So you want to be able to burn fat no matter what distance race you're doing. You want to be able to burn fat that's more efficient for the reasons I said. So that's a plus. And replenishing your glycogen stores after workouts, we talked a little bit about that last week when we talked about nutrition, what to eat after a workout. And I posted something on the MSC Endurance Coaching page today about what to eat. But you can replenish those glycogen stores, which is really important for the sugar burners to get in that post workout recovery drink or whatever type of food that you eat in the correct balance of carbs to protein to be able to replenish those stores. Any questions about that so far? Okay, good. Okay, so let me read this little blurb from Lance. Heart rate 2 training enables you to use fat as an energy source for longer and more efficiently. Thus, you preserve your glycogen stores for longer. Glycogen gets broken down into glucose, which serves as your fuel source for higher intensity efforts. One end product of using glucose is lactate. Now, lactate isn't as bad as you think it is. In trained individuals, they can shuttle the lactate back into the cell and use it as fuel. That requires an active transporter, MCT1. The more zone 2 exercise you perform, the more of that transport protein you will make. That improves your ability to clear the lactate. The mitochondria will take the lactate in and use it as fuel. So again, zone 2 training benefits us in amazing ways. Here's another quick blurb from Lance. Oh, this one's from the doctor. Mitochondrial health is critical to longevity. Many diseases that affect our lifespan are considered to be due to metabolic dysfunction. Mitochondrial dysfunction is relative to cancer growth, immune system function, dementia, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and much more. Does that motivate you to do your zone 2 workouts? So it's really important and can do wonderful things for our bodies. Does anybody have any questions about that? Let's see. Also, I've talked about this before, but just a good reminder that again, when you train in zone, oh, what just happened? I just lost you guys. There you go. When you train, the longer you train, or if you have patients training in zone 2, the more you train in zone 2, the faster you will get at those lower heart rates over time. It just takes patience. So being frustrated because your heart rate goes up and you need to get it down by walking, if you hang in there, it might take a couple weeks, it might take a few weeks, it might take a month and a half, but it will happen. And that will get better and better. So as an athlete, as long as you stay in the sport, you always want to do zone 2 training. There's never a time when you say, okay, I'm fit enough now, I don't have to do any zone 2. You'll always do zone 2. You want to maintain that aerobic base. Yes, Shashi.
Just a question. Today I ran, actually, it was not part of my training, but I ran 3 miles just to check my knee pain and everything. I'm afraid of being slow running because of the pain, first of all, and then I was consciously trying to not run faster than 10 miles pace. So 10 minutes pace. So I'm just curious, like if I train my brain to just run in that speed, does it impact in your run day? Like when you have to really race faster, and then I'm just a little concerned on that. Would I just become a slow runner?
I think I understand your question. So we won't do all of our training in zone 2. We just need to do a lot of our training in zone 2. But and tonight I just wanted to focus on zone 2, but I also want you to know the importance of the other zones, which I'll talk about in next week's. So no, you exactly. If you always trained in zone 2, you'd get a little bit faster and you'd be super fit, but you're not going to be as strong as you're capable of being, as strong and as fast as you're capable of being. So let me just say this, like in a nutshell, and generally speaking, it's your zone 2 training and your other interval training that will build you into a stronger, faster athlete. The zone 2 training, I just can't stress the importance of enough, though. If you go into the interval training right away without a strong fitness base, you can get injured. You can limit yourself from improvements, from aerobic conditioning improvements. So it's it's just important. But yeah, of course, yes, you will do other training, you will do other types of training, interval training, hill training, all of that to build your power, build your speed, etc. But good question.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Let's say it's summer in St. Louis and it's like 95 degrees and you're doing a zone 2 run. Do you solely stick to heart rate on that run, or do you try and go by like zone 2 pace? Or do you just like more like RPE, like just make it feel zone 2-y?
Good question. So, and it's part of the reason why I like using pace zones, and I'm experimenting with those with some of you. Using pace zones takes that guesswork out of it, because then you're just staying in that pace, right? Now, if you're using your pace zone that's supposed to put you in zone 2 and it's putting you in zones 3 and 4, then you might have to adjust to heart rate, right? Because otherwise you're gonna defeat the whole purpose of the workout. But yes, if the heat is taking your heart rate up too high, you can adjust. What I would do is adjust by just sprinkling in some walking to try to keep it in that zone 2, right? So then you're still getting the purpose, and your heart rate will be more in zone 2 if you take just some short walk breaks to try to bring it back down. And then it might come up again, short walk break. So yeah, the heat can be frustrating, but it's a great, and it's also, you know, training in the heat is a great experience for race day, because that's going to happen on race day. And yes, those instances where you're training, where you're running and your heart rate spiking up, you're burning matches without even trying, right? Because of the heat. So yeah, good question. And so pace zone, think of pace zones as training with power on the bike. So when we're on the bike, we're staying in our power zone on race day. If we have a power meter on our bike, we're staying in our power zone, but we might have to default to heart rate if we're in an Ironman and it's really, really hot and our heart rate keeps spiking up to zone 3 and 4. That's not going to be good. We're not going to be able to last for the duration of the bike and then get off and run a marathon. So that's a case where, yeah, sometimes we have to default to heart rate.
Cool.
But yeah, good questions, guys. And then,
Couple of questions, Sally.
sure, go for it.
Do you find, so like an Ironman event, I can hold a pace and keep my heart rate in a place for a long time, but then somewhere along the line, maybe 3 hours in, it probably varies, and I'd have to go back and look at my data, but somewhere it'll start to slowly climb, even though I'm maintaining the same pace. So whatever that pace is, I'm maintaining the whole same effort, and all of a sudden my heart rate is slowly ticking up. Is that because I haven't done enough zone 2? Is that because I need to, you know, I don't know what the causes of that. Is that an eating problem?
Yeah, it
Something
could
going
be.
on at that late, because I can keep it, but then as soon as your heart rate starts going up a little and you're starting to get to zone 3 at some point, but I'm not changing my effort.
Yes. Okay. And that is called cardiac drift. So that can be caused from well, it can be cardiac drift. It can be something else. So it could be caused and I look at, if I'm looking at your data and analyzing it in an Ironman or a half Ironman or something, let's say, and that's happening, your heart rate is just slowly coming up, or it's a training run for Ironman and I want to see what's going on. And your heart rate's slowly coming up towards the end. If it's a considerable amount, then we would adjust your pace. So we want to keep that drift. And the cardiac drift usually happens though where your heart rate goes up and your pace slowly goes down. So if your heart rate's just slowly climbing up, then I look at, you know how Garmin shows the temperature that day. So I'll look at temperature. If the temperature is creeping up, sometimes your heart rate goes up in line with the temperature. Sometimes it's dehydration, which we don't have data to show us that you're getting dehydrated, but we might just know that by the temperature, by the, you know, and then your post-race report might tell me, Okay, yep. He was probably dehydrated and so his heart rate started, or yeah, you couldn't take in any more drinks, or you're taking in less liquids as you were going on the run because your stomach was hurting or something like that. So what I would say to that, if you're holding the same pace, then it's not truly cardiac drift, it's probably dehydration or the temperature, some kind of stressor like that that's affecting your heart rate. If you're able to maintain the pace. Yeah.
Yeah, such
But-
a slow amount, like it might go up by 1 beat per minute over a period, it just slowly does that over the next hour where it's increasing by 5 or 6 beats per minute.
Okay. Yep. And that's,
And
think of
it'll
that
throw
as
you into
just-
zone 3, the bottom part of zone 3 when you were in zone 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, so I would say that's normal giving the stressors, and it's just the stressors on race day too. You've been out there a long time.
And then for long zone 2 workouts, is it important that you always stay in zone 2? Because when you bike in West County, you're almost never going to be able to stay in zone 2 you might be able to average it, but you're never going to be there the whole training because the hills in West County are just too much. And I
Right.
can't go up a hill unless I get off the bike and walk it up. That's the only way I'm dropping to zone 2 on a hill.
Yeah, and I definitely don't want you to do that. So that's a good question. Because I think the greatest combination of training, let's just say you're training for an Ironman. Dave does Ironman a lot. And so a very valuable training schedule would have one weekend you go and do the West County hills, and then another weekend, the next weekend, I would alternate weekends. That's what I did with my Ironman training. Is one weekend I would do the West County hills. The next weekend I would go out to Columbia, Illinois, flat. And the flat in Columbia or Newtown or whatever. Columbia used to be great. Now there's a lot of gravel out there, but you could ride for 5 hours and not have to stop once. I mean, you'd stop for the bathroom or whatever, but you didn't have stop signs or anything. So it puts a different type of fatigue on your legs, but you can get maximum zone 2 time out there too, where actually in West County, those hills are brutal. Yeah, a lot of times you're hitting zone 5. So those hill workouts though are so amazing. I mean, Dave, you're such a strong cyclist because of that. Climbing those hills is super for leg strength and power. But that being said, yes, you definitely want to get your zone 2 time in just because it will help you burn fat as fuel. So where you can get your zone 2 time in outside of that, and because I know you do the West County rides, you do Big Chief sometimes on Big Chief ride is also in West County, guys. It's on Tuesday nights in the summer. And it's great, but it can be intense. Some of the people race it and it's very hilly. So those are valuable training sessions as well. But what I'd like to do is just adjust your schedule around that, knowing that, okay, that's going to be like a race effort. The hills are going to be as much zone 2 as you can, but it's a lot of climbing. It's a lot of all zones. And that's fine. Again, that's definitely going to make you a stronger athlete. But you have to, you need the zone 2 time just to be a more well-rounded athlete and to continue to teach your body to burn fat. And if you're already a great fat burner, it can go away. So you need to maintain that. You can also maintain, you can also teach your body to burn fat. So if you find that I like training in the hills and that's the only place I'm going to train, then I'm going to say, okay, you're going to get your zone 2 training during the week on the bike. I mean, that's where I still like you to do interval training, but you're still going to do some just zone 2 rides here and there. And then on your hilly rides, you're going to get zone 2 in when you're riding on the flats. You just have to, right? So the other piece of it is eating for metabolic efficiency. Eating and balancing your carbs and protein can also help teach your body to burn fat. So that's important too. If we feel like there's not a great way to get 80% of my training in zone 2 or whatever it is that I think you need, there's not a great way to do that. We need to figure out a way to get your body to burn fat as fuel. So more zone 2 training if you have time, awesome, and making sure with that you get the right amount of recovery. So it's tricky. But if there's a way that you could do the hilly ride one weekend and then the other weekend go out to Newtown or something where it's really flat, that would be optimal. Because it's okay. In some weeks, you're not going to get 80% of it in zone 2, 80% of your rides in zone 2, right? You're just not. You have your interval ride, you have your hilly ride. I might give you a zone 2 ride, and then your weekend's hilly. That's definitely not much zone 2 time. But yeah, understand the
But a
importance
ride
of
that
it.
is 80% zone 2, even if you spike every now and then, is okay.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. And so that's why I say, even on those hilly ones, like take the hills as you want to, work some of them, go into zone 5, that's okay. But when you get back to the downhills and flats, bring your heart rate back down. And that takes discipline too, especially when you're with a group and you want to push yourself and you're with, riders that are your same ability or a little faster or whatever, and you want to push yourself. It can be hard and takes discipline, right? You just have to hold back. So yeah, but good questions. Let's see. I think, let me see what else I had in my notes, but let me see if you all have any other questions. And I had a bonus topic that I wanted to do, but I'll bring that up in another one because I think it's that important. Nikki knows what it is. We were talking about it today. It's a good topic. Let's see. Increase your, okay, I talked about that. Talked about that. Okay, yeah, so I've covered all of my points. Any other questions about zone 2? I mean, do you all see the importance of it? As an endurance athlete, the fat burning is really important. So you'll be a more efficient athlete if you can burn fat as fuel. You won't hopefully hit that wall if you're fueling properly. I mean, everything has to work together here. So this is just one piece of the puzzle. Shashi, did you have another question?
Yeah, question about the FTP. And I'm not sure if you want to take that as a different topic, but from the zone 2 perspective, I've yet not done my FTP test. I don't know when should I do it. And if I do, whenever I do it, how the zone 2 should be adjusted to that FTP. How are they?
And I'll tell you, so when I give you the workouts and training peaks, I'll give you the, so zone 2 in power will be 65 to 75% of your FTP. And you'll have those numbers in there. So the structured workouts will have the power numbers in there and take you through the workout.
Should I take my FTP test separately, or you will give me?
Yep, I give you that. I'll give you that in Training Peaks. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then once you have that, then once we have your FTP, then I'll set your power zones.
Okay.
And your structured workouts will all be built right off of the power zones.
Because now I don't understand if I'm where I am in terms of if I'm in zone 2, or how should I consider myself with the FTP, because I don't have that baseline so far calculated.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, and since we have accumulated data and you have the Zwift and Wahoo and all that, then we can do your FTP test and then calculate your zones so you'll know. And usually from the FTP test, I can use heart rate data. So wear your Garmin while you're doing it, and then I can get your heart rate data as well and work on tweaking your heart rate zones too. And heart rate zones, I mean, I like to use power when you have it, but then if you go outside and you don't have a power meter on your bike, then we can use heart rate. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. Now I have Smart Trainer and Zwift and the heart rate monitor. I think I'm almost set.
So you're ready, yep,
I'm ready, I
Yeah.
guess.
yep. Yeah, so your FTP test is coming. And then the interval workouts, and we can go through it together once I get your FTP, and then I can show you how the structured workouts work. But it basically takes you through the workout, so you'll know that you're in the proper zone.
माझ्याबरोबर शेअर नाही करणार.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for joining. And like I said, I'm out of time next week, so I'll send you all a video and then we'll take it back up the following week.
Thanks, Sally.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
thank you.